We are the anchors of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we discuss the queer headlines. A House bill advancing the Smithsonian Women's History Museum failed after Republicans added language excluding transgender women. This prompted Democrats to withdraw support over concerns of erasing trans history.
Anti-LGBTQ Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton defeated Senator John Cornyn in Texas Republican Senate primary. Next, he prepares to face Democrat James Tallarico in November.
China's Supreme People's Court acknowledged LGBTQ discrimination concerns, saying courts may consider anti-LGBTQ insults, workplace bias, and school bullying as personality rights violations.
D.C. police arrested a Maryland man after he allegedly used anti-gay slurs and threatened to shoot a restaurant employee during D.C. Black Pride weekend in Northwest Washington.
Jewish LGBTQ groups condemned Rome Pride after organizers barred them from participating unless they publicly denounced Israel. This has sparked accusations of anti-Semitism and discrimination within LGBTQ spaces across Europe. All this important LGBTQs and more this evening on Queer News Tonight. Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
Analytics company vidIQ has certified the Queer News Tonight YouTube channel as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 12 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in our rainbow community. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, May 28th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we will tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show.
Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but created for the LGBTQ community. Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our community. We want to inform and educate on the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Happening Out, South Florida.
In 2026, our magazine is celebrating 41 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 14,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present South Florida's major LGBTQ events, including Pride Fort Lauderdale, Stonewall Pride, and Pride Fest. Our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2026, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voice as our anchors. Together, we host the show to show the support of the LGBTQ community. Let's meet this evening's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Robert Kesten. Robert believes in universal human rights and has dedicated crucial years of his life to the integration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights around the world. He conceptualized the UN Decade of Human Rights Education and is now the president of Stonewall National Museum, Archives, and Library. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you.
And I heard that there's a big event coming up for the Stonewall National Museum.
Yes, on Saturday, we will host our first Stonewall Honors, which is a recognition of the people that people don't know who are behind the scenes, making sure that we never have to compromise on who we are as people. These are the people who work every day, regardless of the cutbacks from government, from foundations, from corporations that challenge our ability to function in our community and in our world. And these people make it so that we are still safe and that progress is still being made. So yes, we're very excited about our first Stonewall Honors and the first class of Stonewall honorees. And we look forward to introducing them not only to South Florida, but the rest of the country as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Robert.
I was very excited to see my old colleague Kiara Johnson among the 10 listees. You've met her with me once. Do you remember? She's from the task force.
Of course.
She's such a sweet pie. She works so hard, so I'm just so happy to see her getting that honor.
Thank you.
Let's welcome anchor Larry Farver. Larry has over 20 years of experience in human resources, acting, film, radio, TV, live events, parade float design, production, and casting. He is also a board member of the West Side Association. Welcome to the show, Larry. How are you doing?
Good to be here, Bobby, with you and our other anchors here tonight. Thanks.
Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of the National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. More importantly, he's a good friend of mine. Welcome to the show, Alex.
It's so nice to see you, Bobby. And for viewers to know, I'm still gay. Don't worry. Still loving the queer stuff.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Bobby Huen. A world traveler, a well-versed in global affairs, Bobby provides an international perspective on current events, a PhD in conflict resolution. Bobby is a certified civil and family mediator and the founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. Welcome to the show, Bobby.
Thank you, Robert. I'm Dr. Bobby Huen, and let's queer up trans rights. Women's History Museum bill fails after GOP adds transgender exclusion rule. A bill to approve construction of the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum failed in the House after Republicans added language excluding trans women from the museum's representation of American history. The measure failed Thursday after House Democrats withdrew support over the amendment. Democrats argued the new language politicized what had previously been a bipartisan effort and erased trans women from the nation's historical record. The amendment states the museum cannot, quote, depict any biological male as female, end quote. Democratic Representative Emily Randall of Washington criticized the change, saying, quote, Republicans insert culture war language limiting the museum to biological women. That language was not added to improve the museum. It was added to erase trans women from American history, end quote. Democrats said the amendment could exclude transgender women such as computer scientist Lynn Conway, former Health and Human Services official Rachel Levine, filmmakers Lenny and Lana Wachowski, and actor Laverne Cox. Leaders of the Democratic Women's Caucus opposed the provisions that could give Donald Trump and his allies unregulated power over the content and location of the museum. Well, that is the least surprising news story of the day. I mean, of course they're going to try to jam some kind of cultural narrative into here. I mean, the current administration has screwed with museums already established to erase the role of any kind of minorities. They desecrate minority graves in national cemeteries. They have essentially... They have tried to ban the rainbow flag at the literal Stonewall National Monument, right outside the Stonewall Bar.
Yes.
I mean, we have to sue to put the damn flag back. I mean, is that any surprising? Kudos to the Democrats to vote it down. And also, what kind of law would give the president and his allies unregulated power over the content and location of the museum, given this administration's hatred for any woman who is not a compliant, evangelical trad wife? What are they going to put in it?
Well, it's normally not that controversial to let the administration figure out where to put a Smithsonian museum on the National Mall. Normally you can trust the government to do that, but I feel what you're saying. I also agree with you, Bobby. You've made an excellent case for designating the Republican Party a hate group against LGBTQ people, the way they've acted with everything. But I have to say, given the fact that cis hetero women have been so terrible as a group towards trans women, I'm okay with their museum getting delayed a little while until they get better with trans women. Trans women are women. Maybe if we treated trans women as women more, we'd have a museum for women by now.
Yeah. Well, you look at all the contributions of all women, no matter where they are on the spectrum, for lack of a better term. And, what is it going to come down? That, we're going to have to do chromosomal testing on everyone to make the right happy. I mean, this is very, very sad state of affairs when you look at all the people, which is just a fraction of, the transgender population that has made wonderful contributions to the arts, science, and technology.
I mean, the fact that people can transition is as a medical procedure.
Yes.
Should be included as part of the exhibits of, what being a woman is like, just like if we have
celebration
Yeah.
for those people who can do that.
But I want to pivot this conversation towards Robert, who literally runs a museum. So, what is your opinion on this piece?
My opinion is that museums are not intended to be political institutions unless they're about politics. They can hold information and archival materials from all the political world, but they should be unbiased in how they present them. And by discrediting an entire section of women from an institution that's supposed to represent nationally American women and say that one part of that community cannot be represented is changing the definition of what a museum should be, changing the idea of what education is, and absolutely getting rid of the ideas of human rights when looking at women. And women have been fighting for human rights since the beginning of time because they've always been subjected to men. And so it's terribly wrong, and it's unfortunate because the Women's Museum has been an effort of women and others for generations now to get on the mall. This is a long time coming, and it's a shame that it will be delayed that much longer because of prejudice and myopia.
Well, very well put.
I'm Robert Kesten, and let's queer up politics. Anti-LGBTQ Texas AG Ken Paxton unseats Senator John Cornyn in Republican primary. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton defeated four-term U.S. Senator John Cornyn in the Republican Senate primary, securing a major political victory. Paxton was endorsed by President Donald Trump. Political analysts say Trump's support played a decisive role in the race. Despite Cornyn's voting with Trump more than 99% of the time, insiders say Republican candidates now need to fully embrace the MAGA movement to earn Trump's backing, something Paxton has done consistently. Paxton has served as Texas Attorney General since 2015 and has drawn criticism from LGBTQ advocates for a consistently anti-LGBTQ plus record. After the U.S. Supreme Court's Obergefell versus Hodges ruling legalizing same-sex marriage nationwide, Paxton advised Texas county clerks they could refuse marriage licenses to same-sex couples on religious grounds. Paxton has also targeted transgender rights. He repeatedly sought medical records for transgender youth in Texas, Georgia, and Washington, while pushing restrictions on gender-affirming care. His political career has also been marked by controversy, including impeachment efforts over alleged abuse of office, accusations involving campaign donors, and a highly publicized separation from his wife, State Senator Angela Paxton. Paxton will face Democratic candidate James Tallarico, an outspoken LGBTQ rights supporter, in the November 3 general election. The one good thing out of this is that it was a very, very low turnout in the Republican primary, and that bodes well for at least a fairly contested race going into November. And the surge in support for Tallarico and his ability to talk across the aisle not to MAGA, but across the aisle to conventional Republicans in Texas, which still has a large Bush Republican population, although not many Bushes are Republicans anymore, bodes well for a change in leadership in every level of Texas government. And that would be very good for the United States, because sometimes we forget that it's now the second largest state in the union.
And I think that I think that a low voter interest will probably turn out to be disastrous for Paxton. And the fact that you know, if you nominate someone like Paxton instead of someone with broader appeal, you're basically giving votes to James Talarico either via the fact that they will convert the votes, or just people will stay home and not vote at all.
Well, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
James Talarico, he's been a wonderful superstar, little Democrat up-and-comer. One, first off, he defeated Jasmine Crockett in that primary. Everyone knew who she was. I knew something was up with that primary when all the TikTok kids started bashing Jasmine Crockett on her votes to fund Israel and how that affects Democratic primary races. And Talarico's been very much on the other side of that issue. But also, he's been very okay with acknowledging the Democrats' flaws, specifically calling out Joe Biden and really exciting the base. And I think when you're looking at both the fact that we need people to actually get Democrats out to vote and a reason to vote, he's one of the more exciting candidates. And then I look at it and look at Florida, which you see these candidates, the Democrats are polling competitively where they're actually ahead of Republicans statewide, but they have not put out any interesting statewide candidates so far. And it's just been tragic, except for maybe, I think it's Cynthia Nixon or Angie Nixon running for U.S. Senate here. But other than that, it's been such a sleepy race. And Talarico is just a great example of exciting Democrats can win. Nominate exciting people, for the love of God.
Well, exciting is just one part of it. But I think a lot...
And pretty. Look at Obama. Look at Clinton. Look at John Kennedy. Pretty wins.
Yeah.
Talarico's pretty.
Well, and some of the demographics that have come from California to Texas, hopefully that'll influence the votes as well.
Actually, the thing is that we also get a lot of northeastern and other coast influx. In fact, I don't believe that the demographic shifts actually help Democrats, because mostly the people who are going from California to Texas are blinded by the conservative propaganda of like, California is crime-ridden and too expensive, move to Texas where you pay no taxes and less taxes or whatever. It turns out they just moved the taxes around so that technically you pay less in one tax, but you pay out of the nose for 5 other taxes.
I'm going to fake news that, because my little brother had moved in and out of Texas, and he's always been a progressive voter. Like he complained that I'm too establishment sometimes. Well, but like, in all honesty, like, I do agree that the demographics aren't as important. There's just been a across the board about 10 to 20 point shift among voters with these two parties, partially because the party in power is doing insane things that we've never seen a party attempt to do before.
I mean, Paxton has so much scandal that Talarico, the attack ads just writes themselves. Adulterer who claims to be a Christian.
And who was that guy that lost that U.S. Senate seat in Alabama? Because when he was 30, he was talking like a 16-year-old girl. Do you guys remember that? Doug something won that seat against them. Doug Jones beat the other guy because of that. And Ken Paxton, I think you're making a good argument.
Oh, you mean Roy Moore?
Yes. This is not quite the same situation, but I think similar to Roy Moore, Ken Paxton's very disliked.
The dead girl life boy thing is old. It's old.
The audience doesn't necessarily know the quote. Indulge me.
So in old political saying, you better you better not be found with that girl or life boy
either or.
Yeah. It's basically saying that you better not do something that is so morally disgusting that someone would come for you. And the life boy part is particularly terrible because it actually implies that don't ever be caught that you are gay. So that's one of the so that's a saying. The saying, but the saying actually means that do not get caught with a scandal so terrifying that your voters, even your diehard voters, will turn against you.
Although we have reached a point in the political world where you can have the biggest scandals ever. You can blatantly steal from the United States Treasury. Mm-hmm. You can corrupt foreign officials and still be president of the United States. So I don't know how much this will make a difference. I think what's interesting is that on a historic level, Republicans, when they have felt that they cannot win races, have deterred Democrats from going to the polls. If you're not going to vote for me, then don't vote at all, and this is why you shouldn't vote. And here, they have given the Democrats an opportunity to use that same strategy against them. Mm-hmm. It will be interesting to see if Paxton can actually do anything about that, but he has a lot of experience. He's been impeached, he's been divorced, he has been corrupt. He went from someone who was worth like $145,000 when he first took office to someone who's worth tens of millions of dollars now. So there's a lot in there, but nobody knows how Texas is going to vote, except for that the primary indicated that people weren't willing to come out for either candidate, and that's a good sign.
I think you do make a good point. He is sort of like that black mold that you need to always try to squeeze off of your kitchen or your bathroom. He's very hard to get rid of, but when you were talking about like a reason to vote against, not to show up at the Democrat, that's what makes Tallarico such a great candidate, because people want to go out and vote for him, and that helps so much in an election.
That's right.
Well, and actually, I would just cap the points here is that the Republican attacks on Tallarico started to just get completely nonsensical and desperate. They have nothing to stand on. Yeah. For example, Stephen Miller actually say that Tallarico is a trans man. Literally.
Yes.
He tweeted that.
And a vegan.
Oh yeah, how dare him! And Fox News,
trans man.
And I believe Fox News is starting to say that Tallarico's girlfriend is imaginary because
Yeah, and one of the things that Tallarico countered to that was, he's been eating Texas barbecue as long as he can remember. So
well, before Paxton's first indictment.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, cows are vegan, so Tallarico does eat vegans.
I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up the world view. China's Supreme Court acknowledges LGBTQ discrimination in rare public statement. China's Supreme People's Court has issued a rare public response acknowledging discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, marking an unusual move within the country's legal system. The response came after a postgraduate student in Qingdao submitted a petition through China's Xinfang complaint system, urging the court to establish clear legal standards against LGBTQ discrimination. In its written policy, the Supreme People's Court Research Office stated, quote, "The opinions and suggestions you raised are of great value," end quote. The response said courts may consider public insults, defamation, and discriminatory conduct targeting sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression as violations of personality rights. It is also stated that employers could face discrimination claims for unfair hiring, transfer, or dismissal practices, while schools may bear responsibility for bullying or discipline tied to LGBTQ identity. China decriminalized same-sex relations in 1997 and removed homosexuality from its list of mental disorders in 2001, but same-sex relationships remain unrecognized under Chinese law. Activists say that LGBTQ advocacy and online discussion continue to face heavy censorship. After the court's response circulated online, related posts and articles were repeatedly removed from some Chinese platforms. According to Xiaozhang Wei, the founder of the China Rainbow Collective Foundation, quote, "Although the reply is not legally binding, it represents a rare form of institutional acknowledgement of sexual orientation and gender identity expression related to discrimination in China," end quote. Chinese courts have recently heard several LGBTQ-related cases, including employment discrimination disputes and a 2024 ruling recognizing visitation rights involving a same-sex couple. Well, on one hand, it's good to hear that there is some progression going on in the country, but certainly we would love to see recognition of same-sex relationships go to the next level. And I know while our country, it has not maybe the best relations all the time with China in terms of trade, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. What do you think, Bobby?
Well, I think it is not a particular significant improvement, mostly because it's essentially, it could just be a form letter say that thank you for your, it might as well be a form letter say that quote unquote, thank you for your suggestion. It might be a great idea, end quote. The legal landscape for LGBTQ people in China is essentially a gray area. It is not illegal to have same-sex relations. It is not, it is, they cannot diagnose you for being LGBTQ as a mental health disorder, but you get no protections from it. In Chinese culture, which is deeply ingrained in familial piety and outdated Confucius ideals, where you're supposed to, go forth and multiply, and being gay is basically essentially you might as well just kill your parents in disgrace. That kind of attitude does not change unless there's some advocacy for it. Unfortunately, in China, advocacy heavily depend on the whim of the central government. One day you'll get, oh, there might be a little pride celebration in Shanghai. The next day they'll clamp down and delete articles about LGBTQ representation in China from their online platforms because we are not supposed to be visible or exist. Alex here is chomping at the bit.
I am more than happy to defend the People's Republic of China, but I'll start with one thing first. Remember that the People's Republic of China decriminalized homosexuality before the United States did. Let's just remember that. And normally I would, 20 years ago, if you asked me who's going to be better on LGBTQ rights in 2026, I would have said the United States. But nowadays, not necessarily. Donald Trump has declared all sorts of LGBTQ activism as potentially acts of terrorism. China is at least not, I'm sorry, the bar is kind of low at the moment. They're at least not saying being queer is an act of terrorism. And I think this is a good, hopeful thing. First and foremost, if anyone's actually read Marx, he's never said you should criminalize homosexuality. There's no reason for a communist country to go after the LGBTQ community.
But one has to remember, they're not a communist country.
They are actually very much a communist country.
No,
they do control a lot of their markets, and they do actually command economy structures.
They do not fit with Marx.
Yes, they do.
No, because where's the proletariat?
So first off, they don't fit Marx exactly because they are Maoists, but that's a different discussion.
Where is the proletariat?
It's part of the working
No, but it's not.
They're there. Yes, they are.
Oh,
Xi Jinping's father, Xi was in a labor camp as a child. You know that, right?
Yes, of course.
He did not grow up with big money.
No, but he grew up in a power structure where
his father was kicked out of that power
because
structure.
Because his father was before.
No, his father was part of Mao's team, and he got in trouble.
Right, exactly. So just 1 second. I worked on the breakup of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union broke up, Russia liberalized its policies on gays and lesbians. Ukraine decriminalized. Ukraine was the first to decriminalize. And how do I know that? Because I told them that I would leave the country if they didn't decriminalize, because you can't join the West if you're going to be prejudiced towards any specific group. Russia also decriminalized. Russia now bans pride, bans all those things, and it's pretty much illegal to be gay in Russia. All of these countries that really are dictatorships can change on a dime. Comparing anything to the United States at this particular time in American history is nonsensical because this government doesn't represent the values of America. So we have to look at each place as its own location and its actions at this time. I've also gone to Taiwan, where I talked about freedom and liberty and all of that. China does things for the overall political clout that they can gain on a global scale. This helps them with Europe. It helps them with Europe when the United States is having tremendous difficulties working with Europe. So you have to look at a much broader range of what's going on geopolitically than what's happening with something that is not a legal precedent. It is a suggestion.
So I'm confused why we're comparing an oligarchy like Russia to China's communist government. Well, first off, the quote-unquote liberalization of the breakup of the Soviet Union was a giveaway to create the oligarchs in Russia. It's why we have Putin and all of that there now. What happened in 1992 is why Russia is the way it is today. And it's a huge human rights crisis what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. But China is at least doing something decent, and compared to the way the United States has been acting, shifting, not just now, but also comparing it to, like I said, in 1997, it decriminalized homosexuality before the United States. That was Clinton and Bush era times. And it took our Supreme Court to finally do that. So I don't think it's the same thing to compare China to Russia on
I'm
that
not comparing
today.
it. All I'm saying is that when you have one person who's basically in charge of the country, they can change on a dime based on the geopolitical pluses and minuses in making that decision.
But China's a very complex country. In grad school, Chinese-U.S. relations was a big part of my research. It's not just a single dictator. There's a whole aggressively complex bureaucracy.
So are all these other countries, including our own. The fact of the matter is
a little bit more top-down.
I don't know if that's true or not. I think that it looks that way on paper, but she has proven time and time again that his decision going forward now is pretty much law. And if you object to Xi, you may not be long in office.
And
that's most executives have that power. Exhibit A is the current U.S. president, where he's literally decrees. I've never seen a president do that before.
I'm not saying that this is not a comparison between Russia, China, and the United States. This is saying that dictatorship tendencies happen everywhere, and Robert is right. As an international relations scholar, I can tell you that Russia has been an oligarchy because of the anarchy that came from liberalization and the dismantlement of the USSR. I can also tell you that Xi Jinping is now in an unprecedented third term in office. He was not supposed to have a third term. They were all supposed to have 2 terms, but somehow he secured himself in an inter-party election to be a third term. And trust me, you can't find an opposition party actually to run against him in China. And to the point, China is essentially an oligarchy dressed up as
Absolutely.
oligarchy. I would very much not describe it as an oligarchy, but I will say this, China, whether you like it or not, is really becoming the new economic and moral powerhouse in the world. Yes. Oh, compared to the United. No,
we're not comparing to.
But no. When it's because who gets to lead the world, it is a comparison. The U.S. could beat China on a lot of this stuff, but it doesn't. So China is going to fill that void.
Or the EU could fill some of that void.
The EU is not going to be able to compete with the U.S.
on morality.
Leading the world.
On morality.
You can try it, but Europe is a very fractured place.
Absolutely.
China's sense of diplomacy is to occupy several bare island sandbars in the middle of South China Sea and call it their territory so that they can take more of the South China Sea away from the actual Southeast Asian countries.
You know that we're in a government that literally controls almost the entire ocean, right? Like we just don't need to build islands to do it.
China's idea of foreign aid is to basically build somebody an entire port of the road with the trains and everything. And then charge the host country for it, and when they default, they just take it over and call it the Chinese bank.
That's horrific. It's not like the U.S. has been having the IMF do all sorts of
hard.
No. The IMF
specific. It to something that we all agree is bad.
Did we all agree the IMF is bad?
No, not the IMF.
Well, I'm now talking about how the U.S. uses the IMF to put African nations in poverty because he's claiming what China's doing is so terrible.
When was the last time America built a port and then say that's, it's American territory now, you can't pay it back?
Well, I don't know if we want to get into the Panama Canal crisis of the 1960s.
We gave it back, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was a kind of a weird thing, and then Trump wanted to take it again.
Right, but he didn't.
But he could.
Yet.
That he didn't.
And he could.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't taken Canada or Greenland yet either.
Yet. That's the awful thing about today's politics.
And it's global.
Yeah.
There's no real good, solid place that you can trust in today's world.
But it's nice to see China at least moving forward on it. You're right.
Alex, I'll guarantee you, if tomorrow Xi Jinping raised 10,000 warships and overran Taiwan, the first thing that Taiwan is going to disappear is the LGBTQ rights and same-sex marriage.
That is great fear-mongering about a reunification. That's probably going to be China just finding some negotiation to get them to.
They're not going to. Xi Jinping is chomping at the bit.
Yes.
And Trump
if he was chomping at the bit, he would be far more aggressive militarily. The Chinese just don't seem to be militaristically aggressive. I don't know why, honestly.
because they tried to do it first economically.
Exactly.
I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up the USA View. Police arrest man accused of anti-gay threats near D.C. Black Pride event. D.C. police arrested a Maryland man after he allegedly threatened to shoot an employee while using anti-gay slurs at Ben's Next Door restaurant and bar in Northwest Washington during Memorial Day weekend. Police say 32-year-old Delante Fraley of Maryland was arrested Sunday around 4:20 p.m. after employees told a bartender not to serve him alcohol. According to a police statement, quote, the suspect overheard the employee and threatened to shoot the employee and used homophobic slurs against the employee, end quote. Police claim that when the employee left work, Fraley was allegedly standing near the employee's vehicle. The employee returned to the restaurant and called the police. Officers then took Fraley into custody. The Washington Blade reports that prosecutors upgraded the charge from felony threats to threatening to injure or kidnap a person. A police affidavit says when the employee told Fraley he was not welcome in the restaurant because of alleged anti-gay remarks, the defendant became irate, stating, I know where your Tesla is at. See me outside, faggot. I will slap your ass and I will shoot your ass. The incident happened during D.C. Black Pride weekend when thousands of LGBTQ visitors and supporters were attending events across the city. A judge later released Fraley on personal recognizance with a step-away order pending a June 4th preliminary hearing. It is not clear whether the employee identifies as LGBTQ. Well, you know, many of you know that I'm actually a research director for Restaurant Worker Rights Organization, and the harassment and homophobia LGBTQ workers face in the restaurant industry, and all restaurant workers face homophobia and transphobia in the industry, is quite horrific. I pulled up my own report, which is very fun to read. So, seriously, at One Fair Wage, we surveyed about 2,000 restaurant workers, and I asked them to identify if they're LGBTQ as well. We found, similar to the Human Rights Campaign, that restaurant workers are overwhelmingly queer. So 20% of the restaurant industry is queer. According to HRC, the largest employer of queer people are restaurants. And when we asked them, do you experience homophobia or hear transphobic comments, 58% of all restaurant workers experience homophobic and transphobic comments at work. 81% of all LGBTQ restaurant workers do, and LGBTQ restaurant workers experience the highest level of sexual harassment. So this story, to me, unfortunately, is just an everyday experience of talking to restaurant workers. And that's what really just is so tragic about this story.
And also whether the victim is gay or LGBTQ or not, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's the perp's assumption that they are LGBTQ that causes this, and that's why it should be a hate crime. And I also sympathize with restaurant workers, and also the interior of the restaurant. I was looking at pictures; it looked pretty nice.
Oh yeah, DC has some wonderful restaurants. As many know, I lived in DC, and unfortunately, there is a lot of homophobia experience in DC, which is weird because if it was a state, it would be considered the gayest state in America. But you end up dealing with a lot of awful things. The only people I know that have ever been attacked at the hate, gay bash, have been people in DC. It's such a tragedy to see this happen.
I'm Bobby Huen, and let's queer up the worldview. Rome Pride faces backlash over ban on Jewish LGBTQ groups. Jewish organizations and anti-Semitism watchdogs are condemning a decision of the Rome Pride Parade organizers that bars Jewish LGBTQ groups from participating unless they publicly condemn Israel over the war in Gaza. The controversy began after Rome Pride organizers announced that Kashet Italia and Kashet Europe would not be allowed to join the June 20th parade with an official float because they had failed to distance themselves from what organizers called the ongoing genocide in Gaza. The decision sparked backlash from Jewish groups across Europe, with critics accusing organizers of applying political conditions specifically to Jewish participants. Shannon Sabin, the director of European affairs at the Combat Anti-Semitism movement, called the decision a blatant act of anti-Semitic discrimination. Sabin said, quote, "When Pride excludes Jews, it betrays the very principles upon which the movement was built. No other minority community is routinely asked to publicly denounce its homeland, distance itself from fellow members of its people, or adopt approved political positions simply to participate in civic life. The weaponization of pride spaces against Jews is unacceptable. Anti-Semitism has no place in the LGBTQ movement." end quote. Cachet Italia, the only Italian Jewish LGBTQ organization, also accused Pride organizers of remaining silent after alleged anti-Semitic incidents at last year's event. The dispute comes amid growing concern over rising anti-Semitism across Europe since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Similar debates involving Jewish groups and Pride events have surfaced in cities including London, Chicago, Washington, and Brussels. And I was busy this morning, so I didn't actually do a lot of research on this one. Alex, can you tell me what are the rules? What is this particular dispute based on? What rules we're talking about?
It's been very difficult to try and find stuff, partially because I don't speak Italian. But I know that the Jerusalem Post did say that Roma Pride put out a statement saying that everyone was welcome, regardless of sexual orientation and ethnicity or nationality, as long as they do a clear and unequivocal stance condemning the genocide perpetuated by the Israeli government. So I did want to say that, like, it's been a little hard to figure out what's going on, but their stance, publicly at least, has been, you need to call the what happened in Israel a genocide. And that seems to be part of the dispute because Cachet has not called it a genocide.
And also, I just want to caution the viewers that you're going to see a lot of extreme debates on this one, mostly because there are a lot of conflation of terms. Jewish hatred against Jewish people is anti-Semitic. Protesting certain policies or even the Israeli government and what it is doing is not necessarily anti-Semitic. The whole conflation of like, oh, if you criticize Netanyahu or name something is something, then you must be anti-Semitic is a common trope used by certain groups to essentially demonize organizations they don't like. The idea that the weaponization of pride against Jewish groups is laughable when the Israeli Foreign Ministry has actively tried to use LGBTQ pride in Tel Aviv, contrasting what they say, what is the anti-LGBTQ treatment of its geopolitical neighbors, and say that, see, we are the enlightened one. We have pride. Lebanon doesn't, Syria doesn't, Iraq throw you off the roof, etc., etc., etc. And therefore, those people are bad, and therefore you must embrace Israel. That has been the through line for years. Every time Israeli cities from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem put up pride festivities. But recently, we just had a show not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, where there was a report from Israel coming out labeling that there's now a huge increase of anti-LGBTQ activities inside Israel, including having government ministers who literally said that being gay or LGBTQ are abominations and they are proud homophobe. So, find a leg to stand on because, or else you're jumping hopscotch.
Well, it's a sad time I think in our world that retaliation seems to be, a tool out there, whether you're talking about the U.S. or in this case, Pride in Italy. It's sad, and it really shouldn't be about forcing a group to say what their stance is between Gaza and Israel. It really should just be about celebrating Pride and celebrating the people are there to celebrate for a reason, and that's to celebrate the diversity of our LGBTQ community. And there shouldn't be any of this diversiveness. I know that's very Pollyanna of me to say.
I am going to push back on that and defend Roma Pride a dash here. So one, you have two issues going on. Like, there is this conflation of Judaism and Israel. I think that is a crazy thing to do. Unfortunately, countless Jewish organizations do push that narrative. And I'm like, when you do that, people are going to do it back to you. Please don't do that. You shouldn't compare a government to a religion. They're not connected. But unfortunately, like the Anti-Defamation League, it has done that countless times. In Broward County, the vice chair of the Broward Jewish Federation was attacking Lady Bunny for her criticism of Israel, saying it was messaging that appears to single out and vilify Jewish identity. I'm like, is criticizing Israel vilifying Jewish identity? I don't think that's the same thing, but unfortunately you have that going on. But also, like, Israel did commit a genocide, and just as I think I would not want to deal with someone who would deny that there was a genocide that Germany committed in the 1930s and 40s. I would not want to deal with a group that didn't want to acknowledge that Israel committed genocide. That's not just my views. B'Tselem, the actual Israeli human rights watchdog, did an 88-page report on why it's a genocide based on the leaders' statements and the results, along with the Physicians for Human Rights Israel did a much more deeper breakdown on how it legally meets the definition of genocide because they destroyed the healthcare system. And I'm going to believe the doctors on this. And it's not just Physicians for Israel that has said that the crimes being committed has destroyed the medical community. The New York Times had 65 doctors who were in Israel do an entire New York Times piece on it. One doctor in New York Magazine described how he was just so horrified, and using his words, they incinerated and shredded children like he'd never seen in his 30 years of helping war victims. What Israel has done is a big deal. We do need to discuss it like this, and Roma Pride's doing the right thing.
Roma Pride is not doing the right thing simply because the people that want to march are Italian.
Yeah.
They are not Israeli. They should not have to deny America. They should not have to deny China. They should not have to deny. They should be able to march as Italians. The fact that they're in a social organization, Keshet is not a pro-Israel organization by itself. No one is asking people who believe in the Catholic Church, which still says you can't get married, you can't do this, you can't do that. No one is asking the Catholic Italians to deny the church. Why should one group be subjected to that and another group not? That's the part.
Genocide is a very different thing. If an LGBTQ group denied the Holocaust, I would be horrified and would never do a pride event with them.
But that's not part of joining a pride parade.
That's most certainly. So you're telling me that if Stonewall Pride had a group that came in and they were praising or denying a genocide of some kind, you would be okay with them marching?
Why would?
Can you answer the question? I want you to answer that question. That's a serious question. We're talking about real lives. If you're okay with that, then say it. If not, then say it.
The point is, I'm not sure why you would ask that question of people who want to march in your parade unless they're there carrying kill.
Yeah, I mean, they're
standing up for being LGBTQ in a pride parade is far different than going to that pride parade to promote your political agenda overseas. So no, nobody who walks in and says, we're here to represent should be allowed to march. But it is questionable if that question should be asked unless it's asked of everybody.
They literally put out a statement saying they asked that of everyone. Now, I will admit that I did not speak Italian,
and I don't know if there was a questionnaire that was sent to every single group.
The group is saying that is their statement. Keshet is saying that they don't want to call it a genocide. That is my understanding of the dispute with the two of them.
Right, but we don't know what's true because we're not reading
and to my knowledge, we cannot find any other group saying that they're have a problem with calling it a genocide. And remember, Italy, like Spain and Ireland, are much more comfortable denouncing Israel.
And that's fine, whether they denounce it. But this isn't Israel. This is Rome.
Yes, and I'm talking about how people in Italy view the war crimes and genocide done by Israel's government.
I don't really care what she has to say. I don't.
Let me pull it back a little bit and just say that in the previous time, before this war, there were also other controversies that erupted in the queer space when it comes to participation in Pride. For example, LGBTQ cops and cops specifically were under considerable pressure to not participate in Pride because of the Black Lives Matter protest. And there are other groups that are embracing Black Lives Matter but were excluded from parades because the organizers do not like the message. So fundamentally, Pride is a very political thing. Pride parades have always been extremely political. I'm not going to take a side on this one because I think Robert's point is correct, is that no organization should wade into foreign policy or at least things that they do not want to wade into. If they If Cashet wants to have a float with the theme that's basically "We Love IDF," yes, I would definitely have a problem with
Absolutely out.
that. I would absolutely have a problem with that. But if it is just basically Star of David or Star of David on pride flags waving around on a float, I would have no problem with that. This comes down to what the message of the float is. It comes down to what the type of participation or the type of rhetoric, what are you trying to convey on that float. If it has nothing to do with Gaza, there's no reason to actually ask what their opinion of Gaza is.
It's just very reminiscent of New York St. Patrick's Day parade. Gays were not allowed to march. If they could march with any other group, but they could not march as gay people.
I think trying to compare people trying to take a noble stance to say that human rights violations like what Israel's done is same to the St. Patrick's Day parade is quite disturbing.
That's a human rights violation.
No,
it's a human rights violation.
Okay. One has been accused by countless doctors of shooting children. One doctor said, you don't shoot toddlers twice. And that's not the same thing as not allowing queers into the St. Patrick's Day parade.
But that is human rights.
It is not
a human rights violation.
The St. Patrick's Day
you
parade
either have a violation or you don't have a violation. You don't have to be choosing which one is bigger, which one is smaller. A violation is a violation.
It is not a violation to say we're going to take a stance as a pride parade. If you don't want to take that stance with us, you don't get to be in our parade. That is
That's what the Catholic Church did about St. Patrick's Day.
If you
take a stance that you're gay,
the Catholic Church does not control the St. Patrick's parades in the United States, sir. I have no idea where you get that information from.
What?
You just said the Catholic Church was controlling
the Catholic Church in New York gave a decision that went through the parade people and said you
separate committee. The church does not control the New York St. Patrick's committee.
It certainly did.
There were Catholics on it, but the way you're implying
the
it is very different.
Hibernian committee that runs the parade was beholden to the Catholic Church. That's where a lot of the money comes from.
I've never heard that they were beholden. That's a little off topic of this story.
Yes, let's bring it back to topic. And on that note, it's a very contentious topic here. I'm sure it will stay contentious for as long as this conflict will go on.
1 Minute News. Let's queer up health. Men risk health with viral Ballmaxxing trend. Doctors warn. A growing online trend known as Ballmaxxing is raising health concerns as some men inject saline, surgical lubricants, and other substances into their scrotums to create a larger appearance. The trend, tied to online looks-maxing culture, has gained traction on Reddit communities where users share photos and techniques. Aesthetic nurse practitioner Chris Bustamante said the trend is driven by confidence, quote, confidence body image, sexual aesthetics, and the desire for a more masculine or prominent bulge, but injecting anything into the actual testicle would be extremely dangerous, unquote. Medical experts warn that DIY procedures can cause severe infections, tissue damage, gangrene, and permanent disfigurement. While some clinics offer medically supervised cosmetic scrotal treatments, experts warn against attempting the procedures at home. We have a very sick society, you know. Nothing is okay. Everything can be made better. We can look perfect. We can be under surgical knives for the rest of our lives, trying to improve every single element of our body. We try to tell ourselves that we're okay as we are, but nobody believes it anymore. It's unhealthy mentally, physically, and emotionally and relationship-wise. It's just ridiculous.
Actually, I can tell you this. I mean, I know people who are... this is not even a new thing. Scrotal injections or other body genital modification procedures has been part of a minority fetish community in the LGBTQ sphere for a very, very long time.
No question.
Yeah, there are actual, these dangers are real. There are multiple reports of gay men primarily who have suffered severe physical injury and or death because they're trying to pump scrotum full of substances. And there is also the notorious Brazilian butt lift thing where people will inject rubber cement into their buttocks to make them look bigger. I mean, there are multiple Miami-based people who were arrested and charged for causing injury and death because of those procedures. The whole new thing is the maxing thing, which is not brand new because of clavicular and the looks maxing BS and this is another thing of basically straight people, cis heterosexual people, culturally appropriating our, even our BS.
I don't know if straight people are trying to culturally appropriate our ball fetishes, but I will say two things. One, with the clavicular look maxing, he is a Fort Lauderdalian, so congratulations. We might be ground zero of this, kids. But more importantly, if you're a young person and you're like, I don't feel very smart, look at all these people you are so much smarter than. My God, between the Brazilian cement stuff you just brought up and the people, why on earth would you do this to yourself, people? Do not put things in your testicles.
Well, and I want to say too, I think, before someone would attempt a procedure like this, and I know people disagree because it's a personal choice, but you look at some of the things you mentioned, Bobby, where people do backroom adjustments, and we've heard stories about that before for both men and women in the straight community as well as the LGBT community. But I think, first of all, it would be nice if mental health consultations should be done first so that a person can really evaluate themselves and say, what is this really about? Do I really need to be plastic? The whole Barbie doll or Ken fetish.
Well, but I mean, body dysphoria is real, and it's a concerning trend.
We make it worse and worse.
Yes.
All the time. We don't do the psychological help that people really need. Why are you so lonely? Why are you so fearful? We're not addressing the source issues, and that's the big danger. We treat the symptom, we don't address the core issues.
Now, Robert, before you close us out on this, I do want to say one last thing. To all of you that are like, do my testicles need to be bigger? I've seen so many testicles in my day. They all look about the same. Don't touch them.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News. Let's queer up entertainment. Off-campus stars confirm Full-Frontal locker room scene used real nude actors. The hit hockey romance series Off Campus is drawing attention after star Ella Bright confirmed that the show's Full-Frontal male nudity scene used real actors instead of prosthetics. Speaking on the Not Skinny But Not Fat podcast, host Amanda Hirsch asked Bright, quote, "When you see 100 penises, were those real?" End quote. And Bright replied, "Oh yeah." The scene features Bright's character walking into a locker room full of nude hockey players. Bright said producers held a casting call for actors willing to be fully nude. The actress also addressed people's concerns about her 9-year age gap with co-star Belmont Cameli, saying she always felt comfortable on set. Well, for those who are uninitiated, Off Campus apparently is on Prime Video. It is based out of a hockey romance novel. And however, unfortunately, unlike Heated Rivalry, it is not gay. So it is about a romance between a woman who hates hockey and a guy who plays hockey. And apparently there's quite a bit of nudity, although since it is not gay, I have no interest in it.
You sold me on 100 penises, but I'll just have to... I've never understood men that put on a prosthetic penis. I've never understood that.
There are people who preserve their privacy. They don't want people who don't. And
does it look really that different from your own?
But I mean, sometimes it's for the plot too. Mark Wahlberg famously wore a prosthetic penis for that particular movie. Yes, to actually make it much bigger because he played a porn actor who supposedly have an enormous penis. But I think a lot of people were, probably for modesty reason. I don't know. Larry, you do the stage thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have so many thoughts going on in my mind right now with this topic, but I would say I kind of would like to endorse naturalized penises in a film, and it must have been very interesting for the person casting for this. You wonder if there was any favoritism or bias.
Yeah, we're not going to Weinstein this issue.
Oh, come on.
Robert?
No comment.
1 Minute News, let's queer up lesbian and queer women. Gayle King says Oprah rumors once hurt her dating life. Speaking on the Call Her Daddy podcast on Wednesday, journalist and TV host Gayle King recalled urging Oprah Winfrey to publicly deny speculation that the two were secretly a couple. King said, quote, "I would say to her, you've got to say something on your show because it's hard enough for me to get a date on a Saturday night, and now people think I'm a lesbian. You've got to say something," end quote. King shared that the rumors intensified after her 1993 divorce and peaked in the late 1990s and mid-2000s. She added, quote, "If we were gay, we would tell you because believe me, there's nothing wrong with it," end quote. King and Winfrey, friends since 1976, have repeatedly addressed the rumors publicly while praising their close bond and support for the LGBT visibility. Well, I think it's an interesting story. It's no secret they've been friends forever. Certainly there's been speculation, and I think it's nice that it's a mixed bag, but I think it's nice that they have a close friendship. And I think it's nice that they're saying, what's the big deal? If we were a lesbian couple,
Look,
that would be wonderful.
look, I'm just going to say, if it wasn't for this ambiguity, my life on the D-list wouldn't happen. Kathy Griffin would have no career. I mean, I have a couple of her comedy CDs, and at least a 10-minute joke is devoted to Gayle and Oprah. The whole thing that they are a lesbian couple. I mean, I'm not making a moral judgment on, making fun of it, because they are such close friends, and they do not seem to have a problem with people taking the piss, or British slang for making fun of it, or at least of the phenomenon of people speculating. But, let's not try to do that to, random people we don't know.
No, but like, on the one hand, given the net worth of Gayle King and Oprah, play the smallest violin. Oh, you poor, I'm sure you still got dates. My God.
Well, yeah, and Oprah, doesn't she still have Stedman?
I have no idea. I don't follow
Yes.
Oprah.
Yes,
But
thank you.
You can afford to have 100 men a night visit if
Who
you wanted.
cares?
Exactly.
Who cares?
Exactly.
I'd rather fight over Rome than talk about Oprah and Gayle.
Well, that's,
Gayle, who sold out to CBS. I mean, that's a more important story than her relationship with Oprah.
well, that's why this is an LGBTQ 1 Minute News story.
LGBTQ 1 Minute News, let's queer up entertainment. Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma trailer spotlights queer horror and sapphic romance. The first official trailer for Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, the latest film from filmmaker Jane Schushbrun, was released Thursday, offering a deeper look at the director's meta-slasher inspired by classic horror franchises. The preview introduces Jack Haven as Little Death, a masked summer camp killer armed with a spear-like weapon. The film also explores the relationship between Chris, played by Hannah Einbinder, and Billy Preston, portrayed by Gillian Anderson. The film recently won the Queer Palm at the Cannes Film Festival and opens in theaters August 7th. I have no idea what to think of this, because if you're going to be a queer slasher, it better be fun and gory. There better be a couple of half-naked men, and if it's sapphic, there better be a topless lady running around too. That's my opinion.
Look, I'm just happy that Gillian Anderson
Yes.
is in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a big fan of Scully.
Yeah.
And
Fine.
of course, and not just that, but she also did great in Hannibal. I love that show. And yes, and we're not going to talk about my food preference right now. But also a little fun bit. Little death, literally in French, means orgasm.
Oh, is that why it's called Little Death?
I just checked. Le Petit Mort literally means orgasm in French. Patagonia sues drag climate activist Patagonia in trademark dispute. Outdoor clothing company Patagonia is facing backlash after suing environmentalist drag queen Patagonia over trademark rights tied to the activist's name. Patagonia filed lawsuits in federal court in Los Angeles this year against Patagonia, whose real name is Wayne Wiley. The company claims Wiley's trademark application for clothing and environmental activism could harm the Patagonia brand. In an Instagram video posted recently, Wiley said, quote, "This is not a brand conflict. This is a corporation trying to erase an activist," end quote. Patagonia says it sought a settlement for years but could not reach an agreement, and added that the lawsuit is not about seeking financial gain or limiting advocacy or creative expression. Well, this was a doozy. So Patagonia, the drag queen, is well known for her environmental activism. Meanwhile, Patagonia, the clothing brand, is not like, this is not a black and white and evil thing. This is not Chick-fil-A versus a drag queen. This is, Patagonia is also very environmentally conscious, and they are, they do great outdoor clothing. But I think there's a fine text of the law that needs to be explored, and also the fact that Pattie is trying to sell clothing while Patagonia is also trying to sell clothing. That might be an issue here. But what do you guys think? I have no idea.
Well, it doesn't sound like, we don't know, but there's not design infringement. They're not maybe copycat. I'd be interesting to hear more about what their lines are like.
Oh, the logos or the design, yes. Are they too close?
I think a drag queen selling t-shirts is not the same thing as an entire clothing company, but like on the Pattie versus Patagonia, like, I can barely keep Patagonia and Pandora straight. They sound the same to me practically, but like, Pattie, keep making your cute t-shirts and messing with some big company.
Rob?
Once again, there are bigger things to worry about, and this is not one of them.
These are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. Our anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ family.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Don't forget to join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Bobby Huen, and I thank you for joining us on behalf of our fellow LGBTQ anchors here at Queer News Tonight. Robert Kesten, Larry Farver, and Alex Morash. We'll see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ+ world, we wish you a good night.
No.